Great. Well, recording in progress. We've got everybody back. As mentioned, we've got materials from our last presentation up here. So during lunch or the next break, if there's anything you want to grab, feel free. I feel like a big takeaway from your presentation is that we don't have a lot of blasting expertise and land managers don't want to do this anymore. And so there are business cards for both Mike and for strategic technical services. If say you're building a trail and you find a big rock, or you own a ski resort and you find a big rock. I know the Hilltop guys were talking about, they found this big rock and they wanted to blow it up and they called Alaska blasting, which is like very industrial style blasting. And I think the price point made them go, we'll just
$40,000.
$40,000. They were like, we'll just work around the rock, you know? So yeah. Anyway, thank you for our first presentation of the day. We're going to move into our second presentation of today, which is summer snow safety. I think, you know, like most of us are working on summer trails, or we're working with organizations that are working in summer trails, and we might have a winter brain that's turned on when we're snow machining or we're backcountry skiing, and then we move into our summer activity. Even if you like have a Pro 1 or a Pro 2 Avalanche certification, maybe you're not even thinking about your winter side of your brain. And so I think it's a good thing to start building into our risk management plans and our work plans about what do we do when it's the middle of May and we have crews going outside and we still have snow, we still have possibly avalanche hazard. So we have Heather Johnson. She's the business director from the Alaska Avalanche School. If you know Heather, you know she spends a lot of time outside. And how many months in a row have you skied? 127 months in a row. So Heather's a big fan of summer snow, even though it's garbage. Yeah. Heather's the business director at the Avalanche School and the chair of HPAC, Hatcher Pass Avalanche Center, and is also on Allensboro Trail Crew. So kind of the perfect person to talk to us about summer snow safety. So please take it away.
Thanks, Haley. I actually had a little bookmark here that was to make sure I do my intro of who I am and who I work for, because I always forget to do that, but you nailed it. So I do spend a lot of time on summer snow. Yeah, the last 10 summers, that's all like spends a significant amount of time seeking out snow. And then like 3 years ago, I joined Trail Crew when I started working for the Avalanche School full time. And I was out with some crew members and they wanted to make some decisions on the mountain that I was like, I don't think that's a really good idea. And then I realized these guys probably don't spend their summers seeking out snow. And last summer I did this like a little short presentation at our safety meeting, and Alan was like, you should probably do this for other people. So thanks for having me, Alan. Thanks for bringing it up. And if you guys have any questions, do I click to go for?
Or the right to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I gotta click it for me once.
Oh, weird. Technology. So if you do have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, preferably at my Avalanche School email address. I have never opened my borough email address, so please don't email me there. But if you have any questions that come up, or if you're more interested in more information about snow safety after this, feel free to reach out. Super happy to help. The school is on a summer schedule, but I check my email basically daily. Today, we will be looking at snow from like a 30,000 foot level. We're not really going to talk science. People have spent years studying snow, and I have like 40 minutes. So I'm just basically going to give you information and some tips to keep yourself safe and your crew safe. Because while some of you, do we have skiers, snow machiners in here? Some head nods. While you guys may be on snow, like your crew might be coming up from a beach or like Texas, right? And so we want to make sure that we take care of everyone and that you can like throw simple words at them to soak in. We don't want to give them too much. So again, yeah, why are we talking about snow in May? Well, conveniently, you can just turn around. But also in the last 2 weeks, there was a extremely close call up on Peak 3. 4 hikers were caught and carried in an avalanche, that went down Powerline Pass. There was a fatality last week, and then there was also a close call in Hatcher Pass with a tortoise call last week. And there was a close call 2 weeks ago down on Turning Arm. So while it's mostly spring, I think summer's coming. Down here, it's still very much winter in the mountains. Hopefully this works. So does anybody recognize this trail? We don't need a volume, it's okay. It's just kids screaming. Does anyone recognize this valley? Yeah, it's down in Portage. This is Byron Glacier. There is a trail that you can see in that photo where it looks very spring, summertimey at the bottom, but very much still winter above. That trail runs directly under the slope all the way back into the valley. A lot of hikers, a lot of tourists, a lot of visitors don't realize they are in avalanche and snow danger while they're hanging out in this dry valley. We also, where do we do a lot of our work? In these, in the beginning of the season, we're in these dry valleys, with snow above us. So keep that in mind. Oh, it doesn't want to go forward.
It's like your fingers.
Maybe we have to exit out of it. I used to be super tech savvy, and then I moved to Alaska. Thank you. So we're gonna do, like I said, that big outside view in, what's an avalanche? Well, it's snow and ice coming down a slope, okay? That's science. But what's important to know, they can range from something, really small at your feet, some people call it slough when you ski, to it can break, across an entire mile or longer across a slope, and it can connect to other slopes. So slides can get really big, super scary, and super, small slides can also get super scary depending on where they are. An important note, in that video, you notice the slope above was avalanche terrain. The valley was avalanche terrain because we'll talk about it, but the prime spots for the angle of the slope angle matters in snow, is about a blue run at Alyeska, if that helps you guys. So that 30 to 45 degree angle is where most avalanches happen. So this is really important for us because we're not going to be working at the start zones. Avalanches, they have 3 sections, main sections: start zone, a track where the snow runs through, and then the run out zone. That run out zone is usually where we're working. That avalanche down in Tahoe earlier this year, those people were hit in the run out zone. And what is important is, I don't have this on the slide, but a lot of you guys carry inclinometers sometimes. Yeah, everyone knows what an inclinometer is. You can measure, it's called the alpha angle, or for the run out zone, is where you look at, if you can see the slope, you look at it and you want to measure about 20 degrees. And if you are within that 20-degree angle, you're still in the run out zone. For historic slides, it can be as low as 17 degrees. Also, fun fact, inclinometers, if there is human error that goes into those, and they have found out at ISSW, the International Snow Science Workshop, Ian did a presentation, and I think he said people are normally off between 5 and 8 degrees when using inclinometers. So also kind of keep that in mind. So if something seems close, just treat it as it is. Obviously, if you're in a large flat valley in the middle of it, you're probably in good. But those run out zones a lot of times have terrain traps, which is also where we're working. Because what are terrain traps? They're a feature of land terrain that can amplify the consequences of an avalanche. So before I said small slides can have serious consequences. it's about the terrain. Is it getting funneled? Is it getting piled? The debris, like, is it just going into a creek? A very common terrain trap that's super scary and also a very popular trail is Crow Pass. On the Girdwood side. I don't usually go in there in the winter because I don't like having a huge steep creek to my left. I also don't like going there in the spring when there's still snow. Snow in spring, I should also note, is very dynamic. And it's always changing, and we'll talk about that later. But train traps, what's usually like in train traps? Creeks? What are we usually doing in creeks? We're like building like boardwalks, or like bridges, or we're taking our road hose and clearing out drainage. And your crew might not know that there's snow above, because maybe you're in the trees, maybe, just like the angle of the slope, you can't see it. Or they just like, are like 20 years old and be bopping down the trail. Like they're not thinking about it. So as us, we just always kind of know, like, be aware of where you're working. Also know there's different types of avalanches. And for us right now, we are more so looking at wet avalanches. So wet loose, wet slab, cornice falls. What this means is with the rain, the warm up, things, just think like weather, right? Down at Turnagain, the snow is still pretty dry at the higher elevations. The avalanche recently on peak 3 shows that, like, we still have, snow has layers that builds up throughout the years. And these layers, like the difference in them, there's a weak layer in there, and that weak layer is what avalanches fail on. I realize I'm missing a slide, but that's okay. Like, again, science, we can get like deeper into that later, but wet slides, when they set up, it's like concrete. I should have included the photo from the last storm in Hatcher Pass. There were 2 people booting above a crown, which is the top of the like where the avalanche breaks off the ground. But so that day was the day after, oh goodness, it was like 2 weeks, like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now, maybe. Hatcher got hit with a massive storm of the season. Hatcher had the lowest snow on record since they've basically been taking records up there. And then we had this huge, massive April storm. So winter showed up super late. We had a super cold March, which is why there's still a bunch of snow, like in the Front Range and like Hatcher. But when those guys, they had actually triggered that slide, and the HVAC forecasters were out there just taking photos that day. And they went over to the area and like were able to talk with those 2 guys who happened to be from out of state. But the debris pile from wet slides is concrete. So you don't need a lot of concrete to kill someone. And like when we're talking about, like, a lot of people always think about the like avalanches, fatalities, but like you can also get like super hurt in these small things. But just like keep in mind, like, I didn't have a slide on here about avalanche rescue gear because we're not carrying it, right? Your summer crews aren't carrying it. You're not like actively seeking out snow. You're just crossing these snows. But yeah, just keep in mind, concrete. Slabs are really scary. They can get really, really big. In the springtime, they can, remember, there's like these layers in the snow, and sometimes the layers at the bottom are non-reactive for most of the winter. And then springtime comes, things warm up, and then it can step down and it can go really big. So yeah, sorry. And then cornice falls. I wanted to touch on this because this is one of those things that, like, cornices linger for like ever sometimes. And what they are is the buildup of the snow from the wind throughout the winter. And a really good indication to see when cornices are weak is if they start to sag. So saggy cornice, sorry, that's my Wisconsin accent coming out. Sorry, it was very like amplified on the microphone today. But yeah, sagging cornice is bad news. You do not want to be underneath that, and you don't want to be in that run out zone. Those can be above you when the snow in the valley's gone. Those can also, this is what happened in Hatcher last week to our forecasters. They did a really great observation. They were on a cornice and it broke. It wasn't sagging at the top, but just to prove cornices are unpredictable. They were on it, the cornice broke, hit the slope, and then it triggered like another avalanche that was bigger, the slab. So luckily they were okay. But super, super scary. Cornices are unpredictable. And then in the spring, they're sagging. Just, you never know when they're gonna come down, but I mean, if it's drooping, these things can be huge. They can be like, you know, from like as big as this cable to like many feet above you and extended over the edge of the cliff, or ridge top. Just always kind of keep that thing in mind, that like there's always something above you. If you are traveling in the snow, like if there's like a slope you do have to travel across and you're walking on it, we have these things called red flags. These are indicators that the slope is not safe. Number one is like, do you see recent avalanches? Like, are these gullies, which are also train tracks, have these gullies slid in the last day or so? Like, I don't remember driving to the work site. Like, I don't remember that one pile being there. Like, take those notes. And then if you're on the snow and whether you're snowshoeing, hiking, skiing, snow machiners sometimes miss these. But there's a whoomp or shooting crack. Has anyone experienced a whoomp? Yeah, where does your heart go? It goes in your stomach, and even if you're on a flat meadow, if you get a whoomp is the collapsing of a weak layer, and if that was in avalanche terrain, that would have been an avalanche. So if you're on a whoomp, and if it's in a meadow and it's woofing in the, you should just like go to the brewery, go home. But we're working, right? It's summer. Probably can't go to the brewery, but you should get out of there. Yeah, sometimes you don't always hear it like a little, and then other times it's like it gets your heart going. And then a shooting crack. So like if you're on like something like a firm slab, and you see a crack, it's literally a crack that shoots out of the snow from your feet. That's really bad. So you'll want to turn around and follow most likely your exact tracks out. Or if there's like a nice gradual ridge there. Heavy rain, that is what we're going to be seeing a lot of recently. We just saw it last weekend with that nice data storm system that came in. And usually like this morning, it was 36 degrees when we left my house and it was raining, and I can almost guarantee it was snowing up in Hatcher. So that's always, if it's cold and raining at your house, it's probably snowing up top, and new snow is a red flag. And or new snow with recent winds. This winter, some of the winds, like for those of us out in the valley, I don't know if you guys know this, it was a little windy this year. And it didn't really snow. But there was still, if you can believe it or not, like day 30 out of 20 of 80-mile-an-hour winds, there was still snow being moved, which just like blows my mind. But you can see it because it changes direction sometimes and picks up loose snow. If it's super windy, you're seeing snow move, you'll see like, it almost looks like a little flag. There's that Wisconsin, that little flag coming off the top of the peaks. If you see that, that's a big red flag. And then rapid temperature change. This is our big thing right now, in springtime, right? It's cold in the morning. If you're looking at the weather stations, it's still freezing at night. And then in the daytime, it warms up. That warming up is a trigger for the snowpack. And that sometimes it can initiate avalanches. And then actually, after, you have to like keep your eye. So if you do have plans to work in like trails, I don't know what the snow coverage currently is down in the Kenai. I haven't had a chance to get down there much this year. I know Turningan's still very wintry, so I'm assuming places like the Crescent Creek Trail. Oh man. Basically a lot of the trails in the Kenai that if they fall along the slopes, like if you need to get through there, like if you're in Johnson Pass, I would suggest like, if you need to get to point A to point B, like to a safe spot, go in the morning, because it's still, if it's still freezing, freezing is good. Freezing like really locks up the snowpack, and early morning travel is safer. Afternoon, when things start to heat up, like that's time to go home. If you're walking on snow, or if you're on snow and you realize like in the morning you can stay on top, like this is great. And then all of a sudden you start punching through. So we call that boot penetration. As that increases, like the deeper you're stepping, the worse. That's like a big warning sign that, hey, the slope is heating up. It's time, we have to get off this, or if we're crossing it, like one at a time, and don't have them snap in the middle of it. You'll also see things like roller balls and pinwheels. They'll like start coming off the rocks. Usually because rocks heat up faster. And if like someone asked me yesterday what a pinwheel was, and like a regular, do you guys remember like when you were a kid, they were on a stick with like, you blow on it, it spins. And like, that's kind of what a pinwheel like kind of looks like a giant old school lollipop where it like rolls. And they like build into this giant circle. I hope that I'm explaining that now. I can probably draw it. But if you start seeing those, that's also a warning sign that things are heating up. And then you'll start seeing small little avalanches. Also, a fun fact in the summertime, some slopes can still have like ice in it and snow. And as they start to heat up, rocks also start falling. So I was in the Escoular down Powerline Pass, actually August, trying to ski. That, we can talk about that another day. And there's still snow, but it got really hot that day. And as things were melting, there was a significant amount of small rock falls starting to come down with that melting. And it was like, we gotta go ski the super dirty rock snow already. But now it's just that danger is just amplified. And again, I mean, that's August. You're not really thinking like snow melting because you're in summer snow, but it still does. We kind of talked about these upper red flags. I didn't talk yet about isothermal snow. That's like part of the transition phase of snow. That's when you're walking on it and it's like not supportable at all. You're just like stepping through. That is just like a recipe for potential injury, which is why I wanted to highlight it, and like cold wet. Like if you're walking on isothermal snow, you might be sinking like chest deep. There's no support whatsoever. It's it's in the middle of transition. Again, we're not talking science. And like it's just not supportable. And you can find this right now and all out there, you'll find it in different batches. If you see like tundra coming up, there's probably isothermal snow around it. And then it goes and you might then find like different type of snow and like slabs and all other kinds of things. But other summer things, like the beginning of the season, we're gonna have the dangers of snow coming down and avalanches. And then there's that transition phase where we call like shed cycle. So think of like a husky, and like if you brush them full shed, like all their like winter fur is gone. Shed cycle is kind of the same thing. So basically when it stops freezing overnight 3 days in a row, so you have to pay attention to the temperatures, the mountains shed, guess their winter fur. And like you're gonna see like a lot of avalanche activity after it stops freezing at night. It's just like after that third night is when it's just like, that's it, like that's the end of winter in the mountains. And then you start to get into your like actual summer snow. You let it like shed, give it some time. And then when you get into summer snow, another dangers of like slipping, or like maybe there's still some other snow coming off the rocks. Now we have exposed rocks that you can get pulled into, or if you recreate in Hatcher Pass, you just have boulders all season long. But you can get pulled in the rocks. So again, something really tiny could really turn into like a broken femur real quick if you get pulled into boulders. Rock fall again, and then there's this thing called slide for life. I wish I had does this have a laser?
No, okay. But on the slope to the left above one of the crew members, this was actually last Memorial Day. We went out to Matt Peak to do maybe a track survey. I don't remember. But that snow slope on the left, like when we were walking, it was kind of soft and I noticed it started firming up. And then that slope on the left was rock hard because we were finding rock hard snow that are like down in the valley. And when it's rock hard and you can't stop on it, it's ice, we call that slide for life. Because when you step on it, like, bye, you're gonna slide for your life. And then other things to consider is when you're crossing over creeks in the valleys that have snow on them, and maybe it's avalanche debris. Think about the water running below that snow. I think I'm allowed to admit this, but I have punched through many times into creeks, and I've been in couloirs where I've been booting up in the summertime, and I'm like, is that water? Maybe I'm hearing water. And the next thing you know, you punch through and you're in quite the predicament as your feet are now in this waterfall, basically. And that's the same thing when you're like in the valleys. You don't really want to punch through the water into the free or moving river. That's a whole nother level of risk and danger. So just think about that when crossing. Like, yeah.
When do you trust the snow?
When do I trust the snow bridge? Well, with my luck, like most of the time, I let someone else go first. That's interesting. I never go first on things. My partners have picked that up. But if it's sagging, it's probably not super supportable. Yeah, I would aim, if there's a snow bridge that has a tree under it, I would go for that. It just really depends on how hot it is, like how fast the water's moving below it. And sometimes you get pleasantly surprised that they're still strong enough. I don't spend time on glaciers. That's another story, but like for us, like on the trails, you just gotta get a feel for it. Like if it's sagging and there's a lot of water and there's not a lot of other snow, I would really question its integrity. But you get lucky if you want to find spots where there's boulders and then snow that has formed a snow bridge, or that's a way better place to cross. But yeah, send the heaviest guy first. Just kidding. That's a good question. But yeah, that's another risk to like just keep in mind when you're crossing these valley bottoms. If it's like really rock hard snow, like debris from an avalanche, I tend to feel pretty good about it. I actually crossed in November this year. I went skiing out of Crow Pass and we crossed a snow bridge from avalanche debris from the year prior. If that helps. Because those piles can get really, really deep and it's like that snow is like concrete when it sets up. And also it's like, it was the end of Crow Pass, so the water's not moving like super fast. But yeah, it's a great question. And then just again, just keep in mind, are you working in run out zones or train traps? Just always, I think I've said it like 10 times already, know what's above you. And I had mentioned switching into the summer snow. Sorry, I didn't have like pictures of working like with summer snow because we tend to like not seek it out. But what happens is in summer, the snow gets these really big sun cups. These are like tiny sun cups. Like some people think sun cups, like when they're on like Mountain Hood style sun cups, like that's not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with these icy sun cups. And one thing to note, each of these little ridges on the cups, in that left-hand picture, left hand, that's usually like pretty icy. And it gets really, really firm. It's like basically bulletproof. When you're walking up these in the middle of June and July, like I'll have crampons on. But just know that it's really firm. And also note, I think it's kind of hard to see in the picture on the right. You can see like straight lines like down that snowfield. This is up at Jewel Glacier. It's actually off the glacier on the snowfield. There's no ice below where we're skiing. But you'll get these ridges. Those dirty ridges are ice. So that's also something to keep in mind when your crew members are walking in sneakers, super flat sneakers. We're not carrying ice axes. We don't have tools to rest on. Maybe a road hoe, I'm not sure. But we're not carrying sharp point, like tiny sharp pointed things for snow. So just keep that in mind. It gets really, really firm. And then this was that Memorial Day weekend. And so we're not thinking about snow at all where we are. I kind of was, because I was like looking at places I could ski the next day. But I mean, my crew I was with, like they're not thinking about snow. Some of those valleys at that time, again, we were walking and it was just super firm. And I was kind of keeping an eye because we had talked about at the trailhead, like, hey, if we bust out like our work, my boss is sitting over here. If we like bust out our work, like on lunch, maybe we can like head up the ridge and go further. Because usually we just work to the picnic table, which is in the bottom of the valley. And we like smoked it. We were there so fast. We did all our work, we cut things, we fixed some drainage, put in some, repounded in some signs. So we did do some work, but we got there like super fast and it was Memorial Day. So, we decided we wanted to hike up. And this is when I realized people don't know about summer snow. And like some of the guys in crew, like as we were even crossing across some of those bottom snow fields, because there was snow on the way to the picnic table. I just kept noticing like how firm it was, because it really froze that night. And then as we got up to the ridge, we got up there like, I felt really good about myself, like how fast we made it up. It was really cool. And I'll have some other pictures from it later. And we had like hot cocoa. I brought a stove and had a really nice lunch. But then on the way back, they wanted just to cut across the middle snowfield. Like we didn't get to the summit because the clouds had come in, and we thought it was too much of a risk while working to head up into low visibility. And we'd only been on the summit like 1 or 2 times before, so we're like, let's not get lost while working on Memorial Day. So we chose like one of the sub summits, and they wanted to cross like, oh, we could just like cut across that snow and go to the thing. And I was like, if you cross that snow, you will slide 1,000 feet down this mountain, because it was slide for life conditions, and they were super confused. And so I had to explain to them, like, you won't stop, most likely, with the angle of that slope. You just won't stop. We didn't have the tools to stop, and I don't think it would kill them, but I do think they probably would have broke something for sure. And then that would have been a really awkward phone call to Alan to be like, hey, Alan, we decided to like do this. But it was a really good learning opportunity for them. And I was really glad to share those things. And I was glad that I was with them. We did take the ridge and then the tundra down. And the tundra was like also really beautiful for my knees. While like those 2 guys are like young and like super agile and spry, my knees are not. So like tundra is like your best friend on the way down, right? So for us as trail people, this is how you can apply this to us too. When snow is the problem, terrain is always the answer, and you can take that to your recreational lives outside of trail. All winter long, spring, whenever there is snow, if it snows the problem, whether it's got super scary layers in it and it's super unstable, or maybe it's summer snow, like terrain is always your answer. You can pick lower angle slopes. You can, if there is exposed dirt, walk on that. Don't cross the snow. Right now, there is still layers in the snowpack. And again, we're not carrying avalanche rescue kits. So avoidance is the #1 thing right now. Again, spring is very dynamic. Avoidance is the best way, but if you can't and you have to cross a snowy slope, expose 1 person at a time. That way, if something goes bad, only 1 person is either getting hurt or whatever. And then, like I said, take the ridge. Be aware of the terrain tracks. A small little slide, even if your snow doesn't come with you, if you slide for life conditions into a creek, like Now we have a new problem because you might get injured from falling into this creek, or now you're soaking wet and it's like super windy, so now they're gonna get cold and maybe it's like time to get out of there. So like terrain just really changes the mood. Check for recent Abbey Center observations. So if like you're in an area, like just Google like where you live or where you're working and see if there's an avalanche center. They're not doing forecasts anymore, but they are, people can still be submitting observations. And you can get a lot of information from people's observations. Know your trails, know what's above you. Maybe like for a while, let's like, again, I'm gonna use the valley as an example because that's where I work. Maybe we're gonna go to Crevasse Moraine in the middle of Palmer instead of going to the mountains right now. Start early and again, know what's above you. This is a tool I wanted to share with you guys. So on my phone, I have a Sunto app because I have a Sunto watch, and they actually have avalanche terrain like maps. And so different programs have their own mapping, but just know like there's usually an avalanche terrain setting in like Gaia or Caltopo, Onyx. Oh yeah, sometimes people get to use Onyx. They have great overlap on their programs. Use it. It's not going to be exact to the T, but it'll give you a pretty good idea if you're like, hey, we gotta like hike into Crescent, and then it's like, wait, but are we like? I know we go along the mountain. Are we in avalanche terrain? Like, are we in run? Like, you can look at the maps and it'll tell you like what degree of the slope it is, and you can kind of make a really good judgment call that way. And then John Sykes with the Chugach Avalanche Center is developing an avalanche terrain exposure scale map. So that like tells you like if something is complex. Simple, like where it's green, that means it's simple, and where it's gray on that left, sorry. Oh yeah, that is left for you guys too. Left side, if it's gray, that means like you're totally out of avalanche terrain. If it's green, it's simple and you're like in a run out zone. And then as you get into like the blue, the black, and the red, it's like extreme. So Byron is that upper part where that snow release in the video. That was like extreme because it like went to a cliff into right above the trail. Some other resources for you are some good books. This book's kind of fun because the more I do chainsaw work, the more there's a lot of parallels in human factor and decision making on snow as there is with chainsaws. It's a little nerdy, but it's just like a fun read. And then I have some other texts if you guys want to start learning more about snow. These are the 3 like excellent starter books. Like you can't go wrong with reading those. And then your avalanche centers, and then a not so shameful plug. If you wanted more education about snow safety, the Alaska Avalanche School is a great place to start. And then, so I just pulled up one of the local avalanche centers websites. They have a map. This is where there's going to be a forecast. So maybe like when shed cycle comes, they may issue like a special statement or warning. That information will be here, but observations is where you're going to find that information about what's going on, what other people are reporting, what they're seeing. Like maybe you got to go into Falls Creek and you want to see what?
Maybe don't.
Yeah, maybe don't. Maybe wait a little bit. And then what I wanted to show you on the weather, if under current weather, real quick, because I think I'm running out of time. If you scroll down, there is this blue button called the recreational forecast. Has anyone never seen this before? Yeah, cool. So to tell you like the precipitation that's come, they have these lovely, oh, did I just click on some? Okay, no, I didn't. So they have like the maps of tell you like what's the precipitation that's coming expected in the next 2 days. But what I also really like is you can pick one of the snow or weather stations. And I like to go, there's like graphs and, but if you go into the overview, sorry, I'm like a PC person, so, like it'll tell you the elevation of freezing.
and if it's gonna snow, if it's gonna rain. If there's alerts, they'll tell you if there's alerts, but this is my favorite, because it'll tell you what the freeze, like what the rain snow line is gonna be, for that day and the upcoming days, and then is it gonna be snow, is it gonna be rain, and then of course like percentages and winds. This is the tool I like to use in the winter. It does go away in the summer. Do you know when the transition is, Haley?
I think it happens on like June.
Yeah, I think you're right. So like for this early part, when we're still like, hey, is it safe for us to go into Crow Pass? I mean, what's nice about Crow Pass is you can get a good viewpoint, but, to figure that out, like this can help you plan on where you want to be, like, oh, like Seward's supposed to get like 2 feet of snow above 600 feet. Maybe we shouldn't be working in Avalanche during that day or run out zones. So yeah, I just wanted to show you that. And if you wanted to find the maps and stuff, it's also under the resource page of there's all kinds of, like, if you guys haven't spent time in these pages, I recommend it. But this is where all your maps are too. You can get tools and stuff. And that's for the same for other Avalanche centers. I'm running out of time, so I will switch over to questions. Again, if you have other questions, you are welcome to email me, talk to me at lunch, whatever.
Fine, we got any online?
No.
Can we look on the ops for folks, show them where the ops page is?
Yeah. Oh, and if you see something, like, say something. Like, literally, if you're out on a trail, like if we're out on the Map Peak Trail and I see a slide come down, I'm gonna report it to the Hadra Pass Avalanche Center. But yeah, so you can pull up, they have these dots. And that's where like where the recent activities are. If it's red, it usually means an avalanche was observed, but you can go in and read about, what happened, what's going on. This was Summit Lake forecaster, and a lot of times there's photos. And if you don't have to know snow to submit anything, if you just take a picture of it and say, hey, we saw this, like, they will appreciate that, and so will the public. You don't need to try to get sciencey or anything. We just want to see what's going on. Okay, sorry, that was like your 30,000 foot level on snow safety. Yeah, just thanks, that's all I got.
Yeah, maybe one note on all the mapping apps, my like phrase for those is that they're a tool for no, not a tool for yes. Like when you're looking at 8 scale maps and you're looking at run out maps, like if you're looking at a trail, you're like, look, it's not a run out, it's a yes. It's like, that's not what it's for, it's a tool for no. So you're like, oh, this is gonna run out, this is a no, but it's not an automatic yes tool. Because those maps they're getting more and more precise.
But they're not, yeah, they're not.
But they're not perfect.
People get in trouble trusting the maps too much because they think it's very precise. But from a general standpoint, for if you want to make a yes or no decision. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Heather. Any other questions for Heather?
Hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you.